Well, there's this movie that I had never heard of called Shortcut to Happiness. It was released in 2007 apparently. Alec Baldwin is the main character. It also has Anthony Hopkins and Jennifer Love Hewitt as the devil. And I just never heard of this movie. Um, but there's one scene in particular that's interesting because I always wonder just to what extent. I guess the bigger question is to what extent is reality curated. The reality that we're given by the news and whatnot. To what extent is that reality curated? To what extent is that reality real? That's a question that I think is worth asking, worth pondering. Um, but more specifically, I've wondered at times about actors and how they seem to be made to embody certain kinds of roles, certain kinds of characters, certain kinds of archetypes, if you will. Just to sound a little more pretentious, than to invoke the Jungian. Um, but you know the I've talked about this before. I've given some examples of this before. But in this movie, Alec Baldwin is an author who's struggling struggling with his lack of fame. He still lives in a fairly nice New York apartment, uh, working in a clothing store. I don't know how realistic that is. Maybe it was more realistic in 2007. It seems like today, if you worked as some menial job in a department store in New York City, you wouldn't be able to afford to live in Manhattan. But those are little, uh, shortcuts, reality shortcuts, if you will, invoking the title of the movie. That these are little suspensions of disbelief that we're asked to make when we watch movies. I guess. Um, if you were actually living in Manhattan, you'd have to, take a little closet, and you'd still probably, unless you were a trust fund kid, unless you had some other source of income, you still wouldn't be able to afford it. Maybe if you prostituted yourself, you could, which Alec Baldwin probably could have done in his prime, and he was closer to his prime in, in this movie than he is now. Um, but anyway, there's a scene in this movie where he becomes so frustrated with his absence of progress with becoming a successful writer. He's seeing friends of his get make it, and he's not. He's still struggling, and he's still, his manuscripts are going unseen or getting rejected out of hand. Um, and so he gets so enraged at one point. Imagine that, Alec Baldwin getting enraged. Right? Does that sound familiar? Um, well, get this. There's a scene where he uh, is so overcome with anger that he throws his typewriter out of his window. It shatters the window, and his apartment is like 10 stories high. So it hurtles to the pavement below, and lo and behold, he winds up hitting a woman. with this typewriter, and she's not moving. So we have a movie in 2007, just to review. We have a movie released in 2007 where Alec Baldwin throws a typewriter out of his apartment and it hits a woman and apparently kills her. I mean, I don't know. Like, do I have to spell this out for you? I don't think I do. Like, can can you watch that happen in a movie and not think to yourself, "Hmm, well, that's interesting foreshadowing," uh, you know, of actual events that took place. What some 15 years later? Uh, Not involving a typewriter, not involving throwing a typewriter out of a high rise apartment, but uh, firing a bullet from a gun that's not supposed to be loaded and hitting a woman and killing her. Like, does that not seem like I don't know? I don't know what to make of things like this. You know, I'm not sure what I'm alleging, or if I'm alleging anything. I'm just observing something. You know, this is like, I'm not saying this shows that we're living in the Matrix or something like that, but it does call some things to mind like that. That's just too strange of of a parallel. You know, on the one hand, it's not quite so on the nose as it would be if he accidentally shot somebody. Uh, you know, if his character accidentally shot somebody, but still, there are so many things that just the parallels are just they just cry out to be noticed. Plus, I would have thought a movie with you know a high profile cast, you know, like this, like Alec Baldwin, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Anthony Hopkins. You know, those were big names. Those are big names now, even, but they were bigger names in 2007. But I never heard of this movie. I, and, you know, when I came upon it, I was surprised. Like, you know, it's like, I felt like I'd been the victim of some kind of prank, like in the movie Wag the Dog, where they make up some song that was supposed to be that everybody was listening to back in the 30s, old shoe or something like that, to make it fit with the reality that they're trying to curate now about this, where you know where they start this war to distract people from uh, a presidential scandal. You know, I actually felt like where you know where they stick it into the records of you know the Library of Congress and make it look like and record a song and make it sound like an old song, and then you just invent this this event, and people buy into it. People say, "Oh yeah, that must have happened," because there's the historical records for it. That's how I felt when I saw this movie that I could watch for free on the Amazon channel. It was like, did some because I'd never heard of this movie. Did somebody just stick this? I don't really think that, but that's how I felt. You know, like somebody had just invented this as a prank. Maybe AI, maybe a more advanced form of AI than we even knew existed. uh, that they made this movie. I don't know why they would have, but it was there's so many weird things about that. So, reality enthusiasts, this one's for you.